Okay, good afternoon. Hello, my name is Elise Hatton. I am Rockhampton Regional Council Smart Hub Business Manager, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to today's HubLive. Now, as you would have seen last week, we had a few gremlins. So last week, I think, was the very first HubLive since we started a couple of years ago, where we actually couldn't deliver the HubLive and only realized that on the day due to illness. But today we're going to doubly make up for the fact that we couldn't do last week's HubLive, because we have two absolutely legends in Queensland, Andrew and Josie Bates from SwarmFarm, as my guest, and they are going to share not only their journey on how they created SwarmFarm, but also this new phase where they're really looking to hire and employ people and scale up. And so it's a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me today, Andrew and Josie. How are you?
Pretty good.
Well, thanks.
Excellent. Where are you? Are you in your home, in your office?
Yeah, we are. So we are actually building a like a purpose-built office for SwarmFarm. So it's not built yet, so we're still working on that. But yeah, we're working out of our back office in our house, and we all rest of the team's working out of we've got temporary site accommodation, not accommodation, Dongers, where all the engineering team work out at the moment. So yeah, so that's another thing for us is housing everybody.
Yeah, so we're on a farm just south of Emerald at Gindi, and super proud to have all of our engineering team on site, on farm.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's amazing. Okay, so let's go back to the start. Where did SwarmFarm, where did the idea come from? How did it start in your minds and hearts, and then what happened next?
Yeah, it probably is an interesting journey. So my background is as an agronomist and a farmer, I guess, rather than pure tech. So studied agronomy at uni, spent some time as a bug checker out in cotton paddocks, counting bugs. Then spent, I guess, 25 years as a farmer, I guess. And it's probably one of the things about SwarmFarm, we've come from very much a soil up approach, not so much a technology down approach, in that, you know, we're successful farmers doing what we're doing, but we were thinking about what's next in agriculture and where's farming headed, and SwarmFarm was born out of that. So I guess, you know, the big thing was, I guess in the late 2000s with the mining boom, everyone was struggling to find staff to scale on you know, to staff their farms, and we'd sort of expanded and we're looking for more people, and we always had a good long-term team working on the farming operation, but we started buying bigger tractors, we bought bigger sprayers, we bought bigger planters, and we're all about, we need bigger machines so we can farm more country and with less people so we can do this more efficiently. And we kind of woke up one day and said, you know what, we've gone too far. The tractors we're using, the planters we're using are so much bigger than what we're using 10 years ago. They don't do as good a job as what we used to do. As a matter of fact, the bigger we went, the more we compromised. And we're on this mad thing about trying to save labor and reduce our costs. And we kind of missed the point and started becoming crappy farmers. So we started, well, not very crappy farmers, but our farming started to deteriorate. So I guess SwarmFarm was born from the idea as if we could go robotic, we could actually go small, we could make machines that were better suited to growing crops, and we could create the cropping and the farming systems for the future out of robotics, which is something that set us apart, because most people have thought about driverless tractors and automation in agriculture, which is about labour saving. We actually were going the other way. We're thinking, how do we grow crops better and how can robotics enable that? So that's sort of where we came from.
Do you know, I absolutely love that philosophy. I love what you said. We come from the ground up, and as opposed to starting with the technology. And I think that is what creates opportunity across all of the industries. Because if you're an expert in whatever it is that you do, and you can think exactly what you said, ask the question, how could I do what I do better? How could I produce a better outcome? And then think, okay, how can technology help me with that? That just opens up so much opportunity in every single industry. Okay, so now you knew that you wanted to grow your crops better, and you went the robotic way. So you went really big, and then you thought, no, let's go back and make it really small. Robotics, is that something that you were interested in the past? Did you grow up thinking robots, watching robot movies, or where did robotics come from?
I probably watched Short Circuit a few too many times when I was a kid. I always liked building things. I probably should have done engineering at uni, but I did agronomy. But I always liked building and tinkering things. And I guess when we started out, we didn't really even know we were a startup because people didn't use that word back then. I guess this is really, 2010-ish, I guess, 2011-ish, when we said, right, I'm going to do this. And kind of that pivotal time in, I guess, at life, and there's been a few points of that in my life where I said, you know what, I'm just going to do this, because if I don't, I'm always going to wish that I did. So people said to me, oh, you'll lose your shirt off your back, you'll, how are you going to do all this stuff? You're not a software engineer and things like that. And so I spent a lot of time asking lots of questions and flew around wherever I could get to talk to people, lots of overseas calls, and ended up forming partnerships with 2 universities. And so, you've got to remember that, back in 2011, you couldn't go to Harvey Norman and buy a drone on your way home from work. That was sci-fi stuff. There was no Google driverless car program. Uber didn't exist. So this was really out there technology in that day. The only place you saw robots was really in the military, the sort of robots that we do. And so we formed a partnership with 2 universities, and we got a grant to kick off. And Jossie and I had a house that we'd renovated, and we managed to sell that. We put the money into robots, believe it or not. Craziest thing you'd ever hear. I don't know how Jossie ever let me do that. I mean, who sells a house and puts it into a university research program? I mean, it's just, even though it's backed by a grant, it was pretty out there. But I guess part of our journey is somewhat being a little naive at times and doing things that if you knew better, you wouldn't do, but that's what gets you over the line. So we worked with universities for a couple of years. We learned how to build software teams. We learned how to put together technology. We learned about agile development processes and things like that. And then SwarmFarm kind of grew out of that. So we finished in the university programs. I guess spent 3 years in the universities. Then we started employing our own people. And that's really when we officially became a startup. So you're probably around, 2015 now, I'd say? Yeah. By the time we got our university projects up, got them started, and then finished the projects was about 2015. Started employing our own people. And we've now grown to a team of 17 people. So it's been quite a growth, from there. And that's probably the next step in our journey, I guess.
It's amazing. Drew, Daniel, thank you so much for joining our HubLive today. I'm here with Andrew and Jossie Bate, founders of SwarmFarm, and now also founders of a company that is ready to scale. Now, I'm really interested, Jossie, how did you go with that very first conversation around, hey, I want to go into robots. Let's take the money that we made off our house, invested with the university. How did you go? Were you naturally inclined to just say, yes, that's a great idea? Or did it take a bit of convincing on your behalf?
Look, I think it is a journey, and we're on it together, because I often say I came in farming where I learned a lot about the farming techniques, because I came from sheep and cattle, grew up with sheep and cattle farm, and then came across the farming, when I met Andrew. So the practices and the techniques that you use in farming were sort of new to me. And so when we've gone from 7 tonne to 27 tonne for a lot of our machinery, it was that progression, I guess, that I could see that happened really quickly. So control traffic and zero till are all, farming techniques that are best practice, but you could see that things were pulling, it was a pivotal stage in the industry, I guess. Andrew can talk a lot more about glyphosate and herbicide-resistant weeds and things like that. But it really was probably a tipping point and a realisation that our machines were too big. And we had the prototype to the largest planter that holds the current world record. And it was a prototype, it wasn't the next one, that actually broke the world record. But, I had to come home and grab the graph paper to work out which tine we're talking about in the ground, because our machines had gotten so big. And so they were sort of too clumsy to do what we wanted to do. And so I guess robotics was the next step. So yeah, crazy, but that's what we're doing.
Yeah, amazing, absolutely amazing. So I want to ask about that relationship you had with 2 universities. So we often encourage people to work with the universities, and especially researchers. I have 2 questions. The first one is, how did you go not only working with one set of researchers, but 2? And how did you navigate those conversations and lead the way to get to the outcome that you wanted? How did that happen?
It was really tough. I guess, we'd never done IP agreements, and the next thing we had, 70-page IP agreements on our desk. And, we had the proceeds, our life savings in this house, this house that we'd renovated and made some money out of ourselves. And, we were trying to work out how the IP was going to work for us. We're thinking, we're going to write these big checks out to match this grant that we were part of. And were we ever going to see any of this again, or what were we going to get out of it? So it did take us a while to learn to step through that process. And there were no incubator hubs in those days. I mean, you had, Pollenizer out of Sydney. We were nowhere near Sydney. I think there was UQ had one out of Brisbane, but we didn't have Skype fast enough, let alone Zoom, to participate in something like that. And so it was very hard to find advice and how to step through that process. We spent a heap of money with lawyers trying to work out things, and in the end, we just sort of went with gut feel and I guess worked out something we thought we could live with, and got our IP, things signed away we went. But it was really hard. You've got a commercialization arm of a university who's pushing it one side, and you're creating a technology that you don't even know if the market fit is. You're trying to do these things up front. So that was hard, yet that's so much easier now looking back. There's so much more support now and guidance out there. And also ourselves, so having had some experience in it, we've got a far better idea how to do that. So we find working with universities much easier now. We've got multiple universities we work with now. Murdoch out of Western Australia, University of Tas, UNSW down in New South Wales, and others. So while we have never found it easy, and the IP is always a sticking at an issue, and also obviously making sure that in academics you can find the balance between academic progression and something commercial that a startup can work with can always be a contentious point as well, because obviously universities want to publish first and the rest fits around it. So that's always a challenge as well, but it can be done, and it can be done successfully, and we have. So it's just, you need to talk to lots of people, and it's a specialist area as a startup, working with a university, I think.
So would you mind sharing maybe one or two of the most pivotal lessons that you learned during that time?
Oh, there's been a few sharp ones.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I think you've got to be really well aligned. Like, you can get a grant, the grant's got to be well aligned to what you want to do and your outcomes. We've probably fallen in the trap before, and I've seen people chasing grants, and you can waste a lot of time and energy on that, and they don't help you. But if they're strategic, absolutely go for them. They can fit really well, and they've been really, really helpful in our journey as well. So that'd be the first thing, is making sure it's well aligned and strategic, going in, I think. What are the lessons?
I think just the common language of commercial, because you're driving for the commercial outcome, and I think that's where having the actual team come up and be on site when we're working with the universities was really important, because they'd come up and they'd go, "Oh, so much has changed." Yes, of course, it's a farm. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's environmental, like it, and it's the same when you get to any different paddock or any different industry. And I think that's the point that you've got to make, like, it is commercial, and that's what we're doing it for. So yeah.
I think also too is, understanding that IP's got zero value until it's actually can be applied to an industry. And there's a massive, I remember conversations where, go and commercialize this. It's like, well, it's research, it's not developed. We have this critical issue in our country where we talk about R&D, research and development, but yet all the focus is on research, which is publication, new to science inventions or discoveries. Development isn't something that universities do, because it's not something you can publish. So, you've got to find a balance in a project saying, we're going to do this research, granted, but we also have to do the development before we can even talk about the C, which is the commercialization. So everyone talks about R, D, and C, but there's this D in the middle that no one gets. And so from a university level, it's all R. Oh yeah, we do R&D, but the D doesn't actually happen. And then now we can jump to C, which is commercialization, but there's this big D in the middle, which is actually bigger and harder than the research and the commercialization so many times, particularly in a new technology, a new market type, startup type technology or pathway. That development is just critical, and that's where you link real world uses and first use cases with a piece of technology before it can be commercialized.
I really like that journey that you've just described and the focus on each area. But what Josie said is so important. Keep the eye on the commercialization. That's the goal. So because you can get really lost in the research, and I'm guessing even the development phase, if you don't have commercialization very, very firmly pinned as the outcome that everyone is trying to achieve.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. So you've obviously you are on that journey and have been through that journey, and you're iterating that journey. Tell us more about what happened in 2015. So now you bring your developers on farm. What happened next?
Yeah, so I guess, you know, Valley of Death, you come out with some research and a bit of a crude prototype that sort of works. But you've got to prove that the world wants the bit of technology that you're talking about, and how is it commercially applied, and who's prepared to pay for it, and the business model around it, and, you know, have you got a product customer fit, or have you got a product market fit? Because there's a distinct difference there. And so what we did for us, we had enormous amount of interest in what we're doing. We've been in every kind of ag newspaper, magazine. There's a lot of interest in robotics. Particularly, we're doing swarm robotics, which were small, tiny little robots compared to large existing tractors that are out there working now. It was totally different to what everyone was used to. And so we came to this idea that you know, to fund that Valley of Death, because we didn't know, once again, the blind leaps of faith and the naivety that helps you get through this stuff. How are we going to fund getting us all the way through to commercial? Because millions of dollars were going to be required. And so we thought about, Siri's just saying it doesn't understand. That's great, isn't it?
Clearly.
We actually brought partners on board to help us with that. So we went out and pitched to partners and said, you know, we're after people who will back us to help get this through the industry, and we'll actually, you know, we're looking for sponsorships, people to sponsor us to help get this through, and in return we'll promote your company. We'll actually put your logo on our robots. We'll go and do public speaking events. We'll do promotions, and you know, and take this technology broader, like a broader conversation that we can help with you as well. And so, and some examples of that, Fitzroy Basin Association backed us because we're doing things that are good for the reef, less chemical, less fertilizer, less soil erosion. So that was a really good partnership and a genuine, you know, help for us and a foot in the door to get going. And that was really good. We had commercial companies like Westpac backed us because we're doing, you know, cutting edge things in ag technology, and that sort of flows through to their customer base and you know, and the things that they do. All the way through to Elders. We had Telstra backed us as well, helping us with communications, Elders with agronomy and crop science, and Adama, which was a crop protection company as well as our local council. So it was a really unique way to do it, and it was really good because we're able to work with our partners, and it was kind of a two-way street. And then we're able to then to build some more robots and build our team. And then we took our first robots to market, and the early days of our robots was a robot running down the paddock with a guy chasing after it with a laptop and a roll of duct tape 5 years ago, keeping the thing going. But we took them to customers as a you know, a proof of concept and said, you know, what do you think of this? And you know, we're able to use that to get some farming income off our robots, to prove that they work, to get the feedback we needed on what was next. And that's kind of the early days of our first commercial robots. Those robots are all parked in what we call our museum now. We've got this little lineup of old expired robots in the front of our office. But it was an important part of our journey to go out and go and we call it break these robots. I mean, one broke in half. We had robots, we none caught on fire, but we had all sorts of things go wrong with them. But that was our very, very early days, and helped us on that journey, I guess, to get to that next stage.
What a fabulous story. Okay, so that was very clever. The way in which you then went to sponsors and partners. I have two questions. Number one question is, how have you found the fame that has come with you guys doing this? So all the public speaking events, being in all the newspapers and publications. And then the second question is, very clever to leverage that into partnerships and to offer them something that they wanted. So my next question is, how did you find the right people in these organizations to speak with and to pitch that to? But first, tell me, how did you go with the fame? Have you always been famous, or is it Swarm Farm that's made you famous?
I just think we're probably just, we just do what we do. We genuinely farm and we do interesting things in our farms. We always have, and people are interested to see that. I think that, I don't know if we're famous. I think it's just people like what we do and, have a genuine interest in what we do is sort of how I think about it. And I've never found public speaking easy or presenting easy by any means, but it's easy to talk about something if you genuinely love what you do and you're excited, about everything you do. So I guess that's probably kind of where it came from.
I think it's the authentic story too. Like, I think people like to follow a good story, and I think, just doing what we're doing from a farm in central Queensland, and I keep saying this to like kids and, like educators and everything, which is, a big part of what I want to loop into. People, you can do anything from anywhere. Like it really is. So yeah, it's I guess it's grown, and it's just a really good story to tell. So,
and it's interesting too. What we do challenges what's happened in ag for the last 50 years. I mean, since ag was industrialised in the 1920s, we got tractors and things, and then in the last 50 years has been get big or get out. Like machinery's got bigger, farmers got bigger. It's been exponential. And to say we're going to use smaller equipment is just like, well, hang on. Since I was a kid, playing with Tonka toys at the sandpit, everyone wanted the biggest Tonka toy.
Yeah.
The biggest Tonka tractor or the biggest truck ever. And so, what we went out with really challenged a lot of people. Was like, I don't want a piece of farm machinery that small. We say, well, why not? And we had one really interesting conversation in paddock one day with a farmer, and he said, I really like what you got, but it's too small. And I said, well, just need more of them. They're swarms. Instead of having one really big one, we have 4 small ones. No good. So we sat there chatting away for a while, and he said, can you make one that's twice as big? And I said, no, we can't. Like a Model T Ford, you can have whatever color you want so long as it's black. We only make small robots. There's engineering and software and safety reasons why we make small robots, and ultimately it's better for the soil because they're lighter and there's less soil impact. And so we chatted away for a while and said, oh no, I've got an idea. Why don't we get 2 robots and hook them together so you've got twice the horsepower, and then we can pull one of your big units behind it, one of your big sprayers behind it, then we'd be right. He said, oh, that'd be great. I said, well, why don't we just get 2 robots with 2 small sprayers? It's exactly the same thing. No, that's not a good idea. And so it was really, what we did was challenging thinking and concepts and things that have been grown. We've clung to so much since for agriculture the last 50 years, and what we did challenge that as well. So that was probably part of the conversation as well, I think. In terms of the connections that were built.
And I think that's why you go out and do a lot of public speaking. It's actually changing the paradigm of farming. So the more you can put it in front of people to change the way you're thinking about things or the problem that you're solving, it's like the penny can drop, and it's just taking people to the point of, exactly like that farmer.
And even the first robot we built, SwarmBot 2, it was built to be as absolutely as simple and as lightweight and basic as it could be, because people thought about robots with moving arms and flashing lights and computer screens and wires and things hanging up everywhere. Was we were actually building technology that's simpler than a current tractor, that's got less electronics than a current tractor. And when people saw our first robot, it was like, oh, gee, that is really, really simple. And I could actually fix that myself. Whereas I can't fix my current tractor. It's covered in computer screens and touch screens and things. And so even that was part of our conversation, our journey, was saying to people, there is another way, have a look at this. And Siri's still picking on me. Think about this. And it really got people thinking very deeply about where we're headed with SwarmFarm.
Look, I can't think of 2 better people to tell the story and to be the face of the change in the industry. I think you guys are doing an absolutely stellar job. Let me welcome Rosalie and Jan. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm here with Andrew and Josie Bates from SwarmFarm. If you have any questions, please feel free to add them to the comments, and we'll be sure to try and answer them. So the next question that I asked was, okay, so you had this insight to leverage off the public speaking that you were doing. and essentially the marketing and the mindset changing that you were doing in the industry. How did you identify the right partners, and how did you get to the decision makers to pitch to them?
I think you probably think of it the other way around. Particularly in the early days, we were really picky about who we worked with. You know, we had to make sure that we were working with the right people, because there were some people that were thinking they were going to go buy a robot and go fishing for the week, and they'd come back and it would have made them coffee when they got back and have a cold beer ready for them an afternoon. And that's not what our technology was about. So it was being really, I guess, realistic and frank, and saying, you know, this technology is not for everyone yet. You know, you're gonna hate us some days, because that's the reality. But you know, there's going to be some really good days too. But you've got to be in this for the bigger picture and the vision as well. And so we've been really lucky that we've got farmers that have backed us. And one of the things we're really proud about is we are literally, you know, one of the first companies worldwide, and there are others as well, but you know, one of the first that have genuine traction with real robots. And you know, we've handed the keys over to customers, and they run our robots every day of the week. And you know, we're not talking about robots next door. You know, some of these are over 1,000 kilometres away, running remotely. And you know, it was easy to get a basic robot and take a video and a photo of it, but by gee, it was a lot of work to hand the keys over, and it's ongoing work, you know, getting that right. So everything from the product customer versus the product market fit through to the really difficult things about deploying and getting this sort of technology adopted is something that we've, I guess, experienced and learned a bit about.
So it's good. I understand that you were picky, and you've mentioned twice now that going from customer product fit to customer product market fit. Can you just give us a bit of an understanding of that journey and how you went from having customers or a customer and then really having a market?
Yeah, look, you know, it's easy to find a customer that loves what you do, but you've got to realise that's got to be able to scale across the market. And you can get misguided by getting the right fit for one customer, then discovering that you're a one-off. And I probably potentially even fell in it myself, in that because we still farm commercially, we still grow crops. We grow wheat and chickpeas and sorghum, and we run cattle here as well. So it's a fairly diverse thing that we do on an average day, along with building robots. But you know, our first robots were smaller, and they were probably more lightweight than they are now, and they aligned more with our original view of how swarm farming was going to work and as a new way of farming. From customer feedback and I guess field experience, we kind of learned that they had to be a little bit bigger than they were. We had to make them a bit wider than they were. We had to change the way they kind of operated, and it took us a while to get that right. And we're there now, but you know, that was probably the lesson for us. And when you're building hardware, like, we don't just push out a bit of new software overnight and you just download the new app. There's steel and there's bolts and there's engines and electronics and computers and all that. So you can't just quickly pivot overnight and release a new website or a new app. We have an app that goes with us as well. That changes too. But, you know, hardware's hard. It's really hard. So, you know, those pivots can be really expensive for a hardware company, and getting that market fit right is an expensive journey. So, you know, rapid prototyping, you know, really listening to your customers and understanding the difference between what a customer asks for and what they really need, and making sure you're not blinded with your own vision as well. It's a balancing act, I guess.
That's really, really interesting. Okay, so you mentioned that it's an expensive and time-consuming job, essentially, time in business. So how did you fund that part of the journey? Have you gone to market for investment? Have you taken on investors? How did that work?
Yeah, I guess we've had we've done well that we've bootstrapped to date. So you know, we've had great support from industry and also some grants that have helped us along the way, and we're able to create income from customers really early on, back in the days when we used to run around with a laptop and a roll of duct tape, through to when we got more reliable robots that we can hand the keys over with later. We have just landed our Series A raise. There's a bit of stuff in the media last week. So I guess, you know, it's a learning experience for us, and it's interesting in that, you know, we're a regional based startup. We're not in a capital city, and when we kicked the company off and said we're going to, develop this technology out here, people said you can't do that in rural Queensland. You need to move to Brisbane, if not Sydney. And I guess we've very happily proved that wrong. We've built a world-class software development team out here, and we're really, really proud of our team. For all of our software is done in-house, all of our hardware development's now done in-house. We write our own apps out here for the software. It's all done out in regional Queensland. And, we could have been based in a capital city. We wouldn't be anywhere compared to where we are now. It's that deep connection to agriculture and our customers that's been really, really good. And, we bring our engineers in and turn them into farmers in a kind of a cute sort of a way. But that's been really good. And it's an interesting stage for us now because, like I said, we just landed our Series A investment, and we're going from kind of startup to scale up. So we're now sort of recruiting to bring more people into our team. We're looking for software engineers, hardware engineers. We're looking for business development people or people that can help us, at a business level as well. One of the things we've learned is, we've done really well being extremely customer focused in terms of what we've developed. We now need some more people to help us out with business development as well. Because, Josh and I have done, majority of the business side of it, but we're getting spread pretty thin on the ground now. So we're finding that interesting as well. So I guess that's kind of what we're thinking right now, post having brought investors on. And what have you got to add to that, Josh?
Probably just really exciting time in the business because, now we get to scale up the team, scale up the applications that the robots go into as well. To date, a lot of our robots have gone out with spray rooms and the weed IT or the weed detection sprays. So there's quite a lot of different applications going out now. There's turf mowers and slashers, and we're getting a lot of interest from a lot of different people. Can you put this on board? Can you do this? And that's, it'll be really interesting space to watch and very exciting time.
That's excellent. And congratulations. Yes, Andrew, sorry.
No, that's good. I was going to say, one of the things we learned too was finding the right aligned investors as well. We've built SwarmFarm to be a global company. We didn't build SwarmFarm to develop technology just for our region or Queensland or Australia. We want to see our technology go all around the world. We want to revolutionise agriculture in every crop, in every nation, in every kind of region in the world. And we needed partners to come on the journey who shared that vision of where we want the company to go. And so, getting to know investors and build those connections and see who were the right fit. Of course, there's ones that go past and you think, oh no, I missed a good one. And then later on you think, actually, I've got the right ones, So it's, that's an interesting thing in the journey as well. And I think anyone who's been through or going through raising capital, it's a big story because, it's a marriage and you kind of bring on a partner to be on that journey and you want to be well aligned. So that's probably one of the other things we learned, I think.
Yeah, that's such a valuable lesson. As I said, congratulations for going for raising the capital. It's fantastic. So you did mention wanting to bring on more team members. So where can people go if they're interested in joining the SwarmFarm team?
Yeah, look, we've got some roles advertised on Seek right now, but you can get in touch via our website as well, which is good. And, we're interested in chatting to people that would like to be part of this journey. I guess, there's the opportunity for people that are interested in their own startup that haven't got experience in a startup yet to come on board and see how startup scale-up works and get, experience from that side of it. I guess, one of the things, farming is probably a good background for us because it is a bit like a startup. There's so much uncertainty knowing whether it's not going to rain or is going to rain, what the prices are going to do and all that sort of stuff. But that sort of experience can be, really valuable, in someone else's journey as well. And also, through the engineering and kind of being part of that journey to the world it's quite an interesting time to join us. So, really looking for if anyone is interested, please get in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. So last question is, tell us a little bit about the difference between startup and scale up and what is next for you.
Oh, guess we can tell you about scale up in 12 months' time.
Probably moving, obviously recruiting and bringing more people into the team, but also delivering more robots and the applications I was talking about. Like, we're really scaling up our engineering capabilities, and we're assembling our robots, and the procedural changes that you need to make, going from prototype to manufacturing, and it's quite exciting time. So
I think I just think how we're thinking about it is now it's about scaling our tech, putting all the building blocks in place now so we can scale to our global play. And so I guess it's our chance now to prove to the world that we are a global company and can get there. So we've got really good success here in Australia and with our technology, and I guess there's some really strategic steps we've put in place now to get to the next level. So we're kind of laser focused on that now, and really starting to specialise in what those strategic steps for us to get to that next level. And some of those are our first overseas pilot deliveries of robots, which will be really, really interesting, through to customer onboarding, and also some of the delivery mechanism around how our robots actually physically delivered and actually handed to customers.
And what's the next market? You mentioned going from a national market to an international market. Which markets are you focusing on moving forward?
We're still putting a lot of strategy in place on what our overseas outlook will be. So we haven't decided on that yet. Obviously, North and South America are of interest. But there's opportunities through Asia as well as Europe, and really it's interesting. I mean, it's I think there's a lot more strategy to go in it though for us before we sort of name those markets, I guess.
I would absolutely love to speak with both of you again in 12 months' time. And I think then understand what the scale-up journey looked like for you, and also some of the interesting challenges that you've encountered in going international. And I'm just imagining, what if you did put a robot in Canada and it was freezing cold as opposed to really hot as it is here in Australia? How is that going to work? And there's so many extra layers of complexity that makes the journey interesting and also makes the outcome even of a better quality. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to reach out again in 12 months' time, and we're going to hear the next version of the SwarmFarm story. We would love to have you speak about that then, if that's okay.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so do you have any parting words of wisdom? If someone's watching you and they have an idea, or they've been slogging away and they start up for a couple of years and they feel like they're struggling to get traction, what would you say to them?
I think get involved with things like what you guys are doing, like the networks. It's all about your networks, and you can learn so much from other startups. You can learn so much about, from other businesses, and keep asking lots of questions, because like I said before, you can do anything from anywhere. And now it's awesome because everyone's used to Zoom. We've been used to Zoom for years. But, get involved, follow your dreams.
I think the other thing is
awesome.
you can do a lot of thinking about it, because you can overthink it too, and ultimately you're never going to know you have a go. So, I guess I said it earlier, but sometimes you just got to put one foot after the other and then find your direction that way, because you'll never know all the answers going in. You've just got to, make the decision, draw the line, and say I'm doing it, which is sort of what we did, and we had no idea how we were going to get to when we started, but we had a plan, and we always had a plan B in place to back up plan A, and we had to get to plan D and C and D and E sometimes to get there. You're never going to know all the answers. You've just got to be prepared to get out there and get uncomfortable and hook into it.
Oh, absolutely love that. I think that's very, very good and solid advice. Thank you, Andrew and Jossie. Thank you so much for joining me today on HubLive. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for making Australia, and especially, I think, Central Queensland, so proud to show that you can, in fact, do anything from anywhere. And you don't have to have all the answers. What you do have to do is get started and just work it out as you go. Thank you for being incredible examples of how to do that well. We appreciate you and we applaud you, and I can't wait to speak with you again in 12 months' time.
Awesome.
Terrific.
Thanks, Lee.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to joining you again next Thursday for our Hub Live. See you later.